Welcome to Dare to Lead, a Halian podcast, the show that empowers you to navigate leadership, career and business in today's dynamic landscape. I'm Dan Marioni, Senior Director at Halian and your host for today's episode. To wrap up the first season of the podcast, we're turning the tables and inviting our very own host, Stuart Fry, to take the guest seat. In this special episode, we'll get to know more about Stuart, his career journey, leadership philosophy and what drives him as a person. Stuart is the Group CEO of Halian and has been instrumental in leading the company's growth across the Middle East since joining in 2007. Now let's get into today's episode. Hi Stuart.
Hi Dan.
How are you?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Good. This is the first podcast I've ever done. I know you've done a few, so it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be on the other side of the table for once, because normally I'm sitting there sweating thinking, am I going to get the questions right or wrong? So glad the pressure's on you today. I just get to talk about myself.
Well, I'm just asking the questions, so should be fairly straightforward. So look, I know you're on the other side of the table. Before we get into it, questions around the business. Just wanted to ask a few questions about personally.
Yep.
Of you growing up. So what were you like growing up in school?
Yeah, I grew up in a pub. So my parents were publicans. So from a young age, I was very independent. Both my mum and dad would work publican hours, so they were around, but not around all the time. So I had quite an interesting upbringing because I was hanging around with people from a very young age, a lot older than me. And I think that made me mature a lot quicker because I obviously had my group of friends, but I'd be sitting in the pub playing pool at 10 years old with, guys 20, 30, 40 years old. Mm. So I think that helped me mature very quickly and probably understand a little bit more about what I wanted in life before, I kind of fully matured.
And that's why you're good at pool.
Absolutely.
So who was kind of your role model growing up?
You're like this one. My role model was Stuart Pearce because back then you didn't really have, there's no social media or anything like that. So your role models, you wouldn't have The Apprentice or, Joe Rogan podcasts or things like that. People would look at and go, oh, I really like what they're doing. So for lots of kids my age, your footballers were your inspiration. Stuart Pearce, was England left back, tough tackling defender, absolutely loved him. But unfortunately, I had a growth spurt at about 16. So before that, I was more like Stuart Little rather than Stuart Pearce. So I had big aspirations, but maybe didn't live up to. And also, I'll be honest, I maybe wasn't the best at football. I was okay, but not really that good.
Right. So what were kind of your dreams and aspirations growing up? Like what did you want to achieve?
Yeah, I really didn't know. Like when I was at school, I was doing my GCSEs. Yeah, you go through your normal thing of I want to be a doctor or a vet or a footballer or any of those things. But back in the 80s and 90s when I was at school, I know it's a long time ago. Back in the 80s and 90s when I was at school, you didn't really, like I said, there's no social media. So jobs like recruiters or any of those kind of things, people didn't really know about them. I knew I didn't want to be a publican because I knew how hard my parents worked. For quite a while, I wanted to be a chef. My dad was a chef in the pub, and I really, really enjoyed that. And I used to work in the kitchen with him. So I think that was probably my kind of aspiration until I reached maybe 18 when I got into sales. I started selling and designing adverts for a publication in Sussex, and really enjoyed it. I was really good at it, and then decided that there probably wasn't enough money in it, and that's when I got into doing recruitment.
Great. So can you share kind of a pivotal moment in your trajectory where kind of you feel that influenced your career in a big way?
Yeah, it was my dad. So in the public. So I was working for a company called the Friday Ad, and basically it was like they had classifieds of people selling stuff in there. They had Out and About, which was all of the events going on in the area and those kind of things. And they had a job page. And my dad was looking through it one day, and he said, I was earning maybe this was I was 18 at the time, so I was earning about £12,000 a year. So your basic salary was really important back then. And my dad came to me and said, "Hey, Stu, there's this job in here for a recruitment consultant. It's like helping people with their careers and find jobs, and it pays £15,000. You should go and see." So I was like, "Yeah, all right, why not? Why not?" I'd done about 18 months at Friday Ad and been successful and probably achieved. I was their top salesperson, so I achieved what I needed to, and that because I was so young back then, it was a lot harder to get leadership opportunities, especially when you're 18, 19 years old. People aren't interested. So I went for the interview, and they offered me the job on the spot, and I was like, great. But back then, I didn't really ask a lot of questions, so I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. So when I started the job, I kind of got thrown into the fire with it. Now in a lot of recruitment companies, you'll start out as a talent acquisition consultant, and you'll spend time doing the candidate side, and then you'll build up and up and up into going to sales. No, not me. My manager at the time went, "Here's a pitch. Here's the database. This is how you use it. You get 6 letters of the alphabet, and you can phone any company that starts with that letter. Good luck." So cool. In the morning, I got my training. In the afternoon, I was phoning clients. So it was a absolute baptism of fire, but really enjoyable.
Probably
really enjoyable.
Stood you in good stead though for the future.
Definitely.
So obviously, I know you like eating out.
Yeah.
You like your restaurants. What is your favourite place to eat out, and what do you usually get?
So if I'm going out without my wife, I really like a restaurant called Three Cuts, which is at Soho Garden and the Kill Rooftop on the Palm. It's a fantastic steakhouse. I took our group HRD and our group marketing director, my EA, and our VP of Perm there this week for lunch. It was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant steaks, absolutely lovely. But my wife doesn't eat steak. So if I take Charlotte out for dinner, I've got to say Koya. I can't. I love going to loads of different restaurants, but every time I go back to Koya, it's just fantastic.
Have you tried the Cullinan? If you like steaks, Cullinan Jumeirah Master Arab.
I haven't tried it, but I'm going to.
Yeah,
I'm going to. I just need to find the right person to go with who likes steak.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do it as a team.
Absolutely. Done.
So if you were to take anyone out to dinner, could be a person from history or still alive, who would you take?
That's a really, really, really
It can't be Stuart Pearce.
Tough question. Actually, I think Joe Rogan, because I watch his podcast. I really, really enjoy everything he says, and I'm quite one of the guys in the office said when I was talking about my latest health hack, he said, I could sell you sand, right? So I could probably buy sand, right?
Yeah.
But for me, I'm really into this, hydrogenated water and Barja Gold sea salt. So, people like Gary Brecker and Joe Rogan are great proponents of that. So I would probably go with Joe Rogan.
Right.
And I love all his conspiracy theory things. And, they found this cave in, Malaysia where they found Atlantean texts and all that stuff. I'm like, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So look, back to the business side. So what experiences or mentors did you have early in your career that kind of shaped your approach to leadership?
Yeah. So I ran my own company from quite a young age, but I worked for a company called Charthouse in the UK, and it was run by a guy called Andy Jenkinson. Andy taught me the best lesson I've ever learnt in sales, which is how to build a personal relationship and a personal brand with your clients. And that stuck with me for forever, because I think in the world of sales, the world of recruitment, everything can be very transactional. And I see, people across the industry that are just maybe just order takers. They don't really add value to their customers, but they don't build that personal relationship with them. When I got remarried here in Dubai, I had 10 clients come, and I had old clients I dealt with 10 years ago in the UK flying out because they become friends.
Yeah.
And it's, I had a guy fly from Canada who I dealt with maybe 15 years ago who came out because...
Long way to come from Canada.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think when you work with clients, same as you work with people in the office, if you build a friendship with them, it becomes so much more enjoyable. I've sat there playing, Tower with Arabic client at 1 o'clock in the morning, chatting away, drinking tea and having a great laugh. Not talking about business, but just enjoying the relationship that you built through business. So Andy was he was the absolute master of doing that, and that's probably the biggest lesson I've ever learned is enjoy what you do and enjoy the people around you when you do it. That's your clients, that's your colleagues. That for me, that's really important.
Sure. So what kind of motivated you to establish Halian and Halian's presence in Dubai and in the Middle East?
Yeah, I was running our UK business and really, really enjoying it, but it maybe become a little bit of a lifestyle business. I was 10 minutes drive from my house, so no real commute. We had a load of clients. The business was very successful. And our CEO at the time came to me and said, we've got an opportunity with an advisor in Dubai. Do you want to go out there and have a look? And I'm like, holiday in Dubai?
Yeah.
Yes, I am there. I'd had Ellie, my youngest daughter. She was maybe 4 months at the time. So I was like, that sounds like 5 nights of sleep. So that's perfect. So we found our biggest client, a company called Sun Microsystems, who, for anyone who doesn't know, they're the guys that created Java and later got sold to Oracle. So I arranged some meetings with them, came out, and every meeting that I did, people were like, we don't have this here. There aren't recruitment companies that do what you do here, and we'd love to give you a load of business. So on the last day, Levin and I are at the Mall of the Emirates on the ski slope, as you do in May, and we're on the chairlift going up, and Levin says to me, "So, what do you think?" And he said, he said to me, "Well, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, it's a huge opportunity, but either you're going to do it or I'm going to do it, because it needs one of us out here." And he's like, "Well, there's no way my wife Margaret will let me ever do that, so forget it." So I phoned up my wife, my now ex-wife, and said, "Hey, how do you fancy taking the 3 kids to Dubai for 6 to 12 months to set something up?" And she was like, "Yeah, great, let's do it." I was like, "Okay,
Easy.
we're going to Dubai." and then that was it. That was it. No looking back. Almost 17 years later.
Great. So look, obviously you're leading a massively growing and expanding company. So how do you maintain the balance between your professional responsibilities and your personal life?
Yeah, I think it is really difficult. When you see influencers and you see these people posting saying, "Oh, I get up at 5 o'clock and I do this, and then I have a coffee and then I get my kids ready for school and I take them to school and everything's with a big laugh and a smile." That doesn't exist, right? I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I train for 2 hours, have a little bit of time. My youngest son's 2.5. He comes in the gym and carries a 1 kg weight around and says he's building his muscles and those things. And then you go to work and you deal with a normal day at work. And a normal day at work can be, this is great, this is brilliant, or here's a massive opportunity, or here's a massive challenge, or any of those kind of things. And I make sure that when I leave work and go home, I kind of transitioned my mindset from being a CEO to being a husband and a father, because what can happen is I can walk through the front door and there'll be my wife, our housemaid, my eldest daughter Alice, my middle daughter Grace, and my youngest daughter Ellie, all on all fours, crawling around the front room, meowing like cats. And George, my son, looking at me and going, "Be the pussycat. Now, Daddy, be the pussycat." So I have to go from being a CEO running a multi-million-dollar, 1,000 people plus business into all fours going, meow, meow. So I think you just got to take it as it comes and don't take anything too seriously.
Right. So can you discuss a challenging career decision that you've had to face and how you've navigated through that?
Yeah, I think for me, probably our biggest challenge was when we worked with a company called HP on the Smart Learning program. And the business was here and it was established and doing well. And our business in Europe and UK was doing well. And we had a mega project. This was not 1 or 2 or 5 people. It was, I think, 145. And they needed them within 9 weeks. So we had to make a decision on, could we do it? Can we staff it up? What do we need to do to go and deliver it? Because you can't just get 145 FTEs and full-time employees and put them on site. You need HR, you need finance, you need everything. So we had to really think really, really importantly about how we could do it, and if we were going to do it, how we would do it well, and finally, how we fund it. Because we're a medium-sized business, hiring 145 people, putting them on site with whatever it was, 65-day payment terms. So you're paying 3 salaries before you get anything back. It's a big commitment, and we decided to do it. And I think that probably architected the growth trajectory that we went on after that got us to where we are today.
So would you say that was the kind of first big project that we worked on?
Yeah, it was the first. It was the biggest one that we'd ever taken on, and it was the one that really, challenged us in lots of different ways. We made some mistakes along the way, awesome. But we also, made some real changes to our business and stuff that benefited the client. So much so that when the project got rebid a few years ago, we'd lost it maybe 5-6 years ago, and when it got rebid 3 years ago, we won it again because the customer was really happy with what we delivered previously. So really good.
Right. So can you describe your leadership style, and have you tweaked it or has it evolved over time?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think. Have you seen the film Split?
No, I haven't. But
Okay.
the 2 personalities.
Yeah, I have about 15, because if I'm dealing with a leader in Germany, I have to have a certain type of leadership style with them. If I'm dealing with a leader in the UK, it's different. If I'm dealing with you or Jack McCauley, our SVP for sales, it's different. If I'm dealing with Levita, our HRD, it's different. So I think one of the things I learned quite early is seek to understand who the leader is, and understand the right levers to give them what they want and give them the right support, because one size does not fit all in leadership. You cannot say my leadership style is this and everyone gets led that same way. Doesn't work. Different people need different levels of support.
I agree. So what do you believe are the most important qualities of a leader then? And obviously you spoke about how you would adapt and lead people in different ways, but kind of the core principles of being a leader.
Trust, especially for, if you promote someone into a leadership role, there's a reason you've promoted them. If you hire someone as a leader, there's a reason that you've hired them. If you don't trust them, you shouldn't have hired them, you shouldn't have promoted them. So you've got to allow people to make their mistakes, and everyone makes mistakes. I make mistakes. Leadership makes mistakes all the time, and that's just natural. But the important thing is supporting them to learn from their mistakes. So next time scenarios like that come about, they can be more successful.
And then what strategies do you employ to ensure there's effective collaboration across the team? Because you're managing the whole group. So how do you ensure that that's effective across the group?
Yeah, it's getting people together and giving them a North Star. So it's very easy to say, Bob in Luxembourg, you've got a client here that John in France can work with, go and sort it out. But Bob will say, oh, what do I earn from it? And John will say, do I have to split the fees and do those things? And it becomes very difficult. But if you get everyone together and say, this is what we want to achieve as a business, and when you cut that down to the macro components, this is what we need from Luxembourg, this is what we need from France. Everyone knows what their route to success is. And if they know what their route to success is, you get more collaboration between people, as opposed to people just saying, well, I'm just going to look at it, how it benefits me. So we recently had a sales conference where we brought all our senior leaders from across the globe together, and the level of collaboration that's come out of that has been fantastic so far. And it's also, because you get people together, people build those relationships. So Bob and John are not just people at the end of Teams calls. They've broken bread together. They've built a relationship, and people become vested in each other's success after that.
Yeah, sure. So what drew you to Halian in 2007?
Yeah.
And what were your kind of initial impressions of the company and its potential?
So I when I was working at Charthouse and Halian were big competitors, and Sun Microsystems was a client they were both working with, and I regularly won more business from Sun than Halian when I was at Charthouse. So when I left and started up my own business, maybe 6 months into it, Levin, who's the CEO or joint CEO with John Halpenny, John actually phoned me up and said, we've got some work in Switzerland, can you help us? And I said, great, brilliant. I've got my own agency, I can do some collaboration. So I started to do that. And maybe a year into my journey, I got Levin and John said, hey, do you mind meeting up with us? We want to talk to you about some stuff. So I met up with them, and Levin said to me, I'm going to cut to the chase. What's it going to take for you to come and join our business? Well, I've just started my own company. I've gone from, working in Hove and living in Saltdean to having an office 5 minutes from my house. My kids come, they go to infant school, and then they come in the office and say hi. I have the best lifestyle business ever. So no. And then they courted me for a while. And in the end they put an offer on the table that I couldn't really turn down. And it wasn't just financially, it was for me at the time, it was a career opportunity and the trajectory of growth. So I am a very, very, very hungry, driven individual in every aspect of my life. When you start up your own business, you've got to be very cautious when you expand, because every investment dollar that you've got, if you get it wrong, you can go out of business. And the journey with Halian was become a shareholder, become part of the board, and here's a big pot of investment. So you can run the UK. That is yours to do with as you want, and this is what we'll invest. So for me, I went from being an employee at Charthouse to running my own business, to then being a shareholder and running my own business, but with much deeper pockets. And that was a really, really exciting time for me and a really interesting journey.
Sure. So look, you've been here a long time now in this region. How would you say the regional market has kind of evolved, and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah. Yeah. When I first came out here and the word cloud appeared, people were like, it's never going to take off here because all the local businesses want to buy something that they can put in their data center and see all the flashing lights and those things. And it's just evolved massively since then. Middle East has become a hub for startups, fintechs, tech startups, health tech, med tech, property tech, all sorts. And
Now AI.
and look at the amount of AI businesses out here and the amount of investment going into AI. It's absolutely massive. So, I see it that the UAE and Saudi following have seen that the benefit of being a UK business isn't there. What does the UK give you? Tax, business rates, bad weather. Yeah. What does the UAE give you? Gives you opportunities, gives you probably the biggest access to the most diverse candidate marketplace in the world, because a lot of people are happy moving to the Middle East, and the way the government structured the visas here, it's very, very easy to bring almost every nationality to the country. So what do? You get access to the best worldwide talent, don't pay tax. So businesses say, great, well, we want the best talent and we want a place where our business can thrive and we continue to invest in it all the time. That's where UAE comes in. And the government here have really jumped on the back of that opportunity and made it real. And that's why the country continues to expand the UAE continues to expand at a huge level. Saudi is another thing, entirely. They've gone from being quite closed shop 17 years ago to allowing foreign investment, to increasing the amount of expat talent, to really working hard to develop their own talent. The quality of Saudi nationals now is absolutely amazing. So they've embraced it, and with a higher national population than UAE, they've capitalized on that as well.
So what would you say the biggest shift is in terms of your responsibilities since becoming the CEO in 2022?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be easy because I was running Middle East, and I thought, well, it's just more of the same. But it's not. It's not. We've done 2 acquisitions. We acquired Staff Group and Austin Fraser, UK and US, and those acquisitions have been, really exciting and challenging to integrate into the business. But my learning over the last 30 months has probably been more than the 10 years prior to that.
Really?
Because you're dealing with diverse cultures across the world, and it's completely different when you're just running an office or a country. So I've learned to adapt. I spend more time now on self-learning than I've ever spent before, because for me, whether you're Dan Marioni 10 years,
10.5 years now,
10.5 years in Halian, or whether you're a new employee coming to the company, I take it as my personal responsibility for your success. So I've seen you start as a resourcer and work up to being a senior director, and I see your trajectory continuing. And I need to make sure that the business that you're in has those opportunities for you, so you're not stagnant and you don't have 2 years in your current role and think, what's next? So for me, I've had to do lots of self-learning, and around that, to understand what drives people and how I can support them to hit their life goals, not just business goals, but life goals. When you bought your first house, I was ecstatic for you.
Yeah.
Because I've seen me be a part of your success to get you to that point of being able to buy a property, getting married, having kids, all those things that people do. I like to think that Halian has an impact in the ability of people to do those things.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing, really. So what would you say is your proudest accomplishment since, I mean, you can say since joining as the CEO, or for the whole time you've been at Halian?
Yeah, I think the management buyout when T20 Capital invested into Halian was probably my proudest achievement for two reasons. One, because it helped secure the goals of the other two shareholders, Dave O'Malley and Levin Antonian, both approaching 60, wanted to de-risk because all their investment was in Halian, and that they then achieved that, and that was important and a proud moment to see someone who's worked all their life hit the goals that they wanted to and walk away with something substantial and successful. So that was a really big part for me, but also having the ability to take this business to the next level. And for anyone that has ever done an acquisition or a merger or led a management buyout, it's not easy. It's tough before you do it, and it's tough after you do it. We're 2.5 years down the line after doing it and making 2 acquisitions, and I feel now is the first time we're really entering into that period of stability in the business that we can, we've grown massively over the last couple of years, but I think we're now at that point, the tipping edge where we'll start to grow really significantly.
Yeah. And how do you handle setbacks or challenges, and how have those challenges kind of what have those challenges taught you about leadership?
Yeah, I think all of it is a learning experience. Any challenge, any setback, whether it's professional or personal, is an opportunity for you to learn from. So I think you go through different stages. The challenge happens, and I'm a solutions person. So whenever anything happens, I'm like, oh no, actually, I'll rephrase that. Whenever anything happens, I used to say, how do I fix this? And I would, not sleep at night and, have insomnia and be on my phone at 3:00 in the morning thinking, I should try this or this or this or this. That's probably evolved now to people come to me with challenges and I'll say, great, what's your solution?
Yeah.
And then I'll work with that person to architect their solution into fixing the challenge. Some challenges and some problems you can't fix. They are what they are. And the really important thing is you learn from them and you do a post-mortem and say, was there anything that happened along that chain of events where I or someone in our company could have done something to create a different outcome? And that's where you learn, is that self-reflection of what happened and how you can make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
Right.
But there's challenges all the time and each and every day, and you've just got to deal with them and understand that the world moves on its own axis, and you can't control it. So as these things come, you can wallow in, how am I going to deal with this? It's all too much. World's on my shoulders. Or you can just say, okay, this is here. It's in front of me. Let me deal with it, and use the right people around you to deal with it.
Yeah. I've noticed sometimes you can walk in the office like you're in a really positive mood, and one thing can happen and it puts you in a bad mood. But the same thing on the other side of the coin, you can go in the office in a bad mood, feeling a bit down, whatever.
Yeah.
And then something happens at work. There's an opportunity or a deal, and then it kind of just changes your whole perspective and mood.
Absolutely. And you got to remember that work is work, but everyone has their life. Right, their life around them. Someone comes in and I don't know, you say good morning to them, you go, a grunt back. You don't know whether they're, dogs at the vets because they're ill, or whether they haven't slept all night because their child's been up all night, or whether, they've got money problems or any of those things. And that's where, for me, being close to the people that work with you allows you to support them on the personal side as well. And that becomes really important to be successful in your business.
Definitely. So one last question. How do you dare to lead?
It's a really interesting question because I've asked that a lot, and it's a tough one. I think my opinion is the most successful leaders are the people that keep evolving themselves. So it's not one leadership style fits every person in the business. The most successful leaders are the ones that change, they evolve, they adapt, they understand how to lead individuals rather than just have one leadership style. I think if you can do that, then you can be really, really successful. I had a coach, and the coach asked me, if you could do one thing in your business, what would it be? This is maybe 3 years ago. And I said, one thing in my business, what would it be? I would create 100 clones of myself, and I would have the most successful business in the world. And she said, well, you're not going to do that. So what are you going to do? And we talked about it, and we said that actually, if you get to the point that 80% is good enough, then you can have a really successful business. And by that, I mean, if I give you a task and I know I would do 100% of that task because I'd know how to do it and I'd know what I want it to look like, that's great. That's like cloning yourself. But if you do 80% of it perfectly, that's good. That's great. Yeah. So don't pressure yourself about the other 20%. Understand that people doing 80% of a good job is good enough. And then, you can run your business effectively by trusting people and giving them opportunities and not expecting that everyone does it the way that you do it.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that wraps us up for today. It's been a pleasure.
I've enjoyed this side of the table. If anyone else ever wants a podcast guest, message my marketing team. I'll happily come and do it.
Cheers, Stuart.
Great, thanks, Dan.
And that brings us to the end of a special episode, closing out season 1 of Dare to Lead, Halian podcast. It was a pleasure having our host, Stuart Fry, on the other side of the mic to hear his personal journey, what led him to the Middle East, and how he helped shape Halian's incredible growth across the region. From early influences and bold strategic decisions to his leadership mindset and vision for the future, Stuart shared thoughtful reflections on what it takes to lead in an evolving industry and region.
We've had a fantastic time creating this first season, and for me personally, it's been incredibly fun and inspiring to speak with so many remarkable leaders. I truly hope you, our listeners, found as much value and inspiration in these conversations as I did. Thank you for being part of this journey. We appreciate each and every person that's listened to this. In the meantime, please follow us for more things Halian and visit www.halian.com to catch up on all of our previous episodes. See you soon.